Shouldn't you be moving faster? At this rate, the party will be over before you finish. But I suppose this is probably the most exciting place you have ever worked. The charity gala had been running for a while. The champagne was expensive. The dresses were expensive. The conversations were expensive. And Seraphina Vale was in her element. She moved through that ballroom like she owned it, greeting the right people, laughing at the right moments, standing beside her fiancé, Houston's most eligible architect, like a trophy that had finally found its shelf. Everything was perfect. And then she saw him, a janitor pushing a cart near the service entrance, moving slowly, carefully, like a man who had no idea how out of place he looked in a room like this. Seraphina rolled her eyes. She walked over, leaned close, and said something to him that made the people beside her laugh. Something cruel, something designed to remind him exactly where he stood. The janitor looked at her, said nothing, nodded once, and went back to work. Seraphina laughed again and rejoined her fiancé. She never thought about that janitor again. Not for the rest of the evening, not when she danced, not when she accepted congratulations on her upcoming wedding, not even when her fiancé excused himself from the table. She did not think about the janitor until later, when the master of ceremonies stepped to the microphone and introduced the evening's surprise keynote guest, the man who had personally funded this entire charity gala, the man whose name was on the building they were standing in. And the janitor's cart rolled quietly to the side of the room, and the man pushing it straightened up, walked to the microphone, and the room exploded. "Thank you. Please sit down. I am just a man who used to mop floors." Seraphina Vale turned to grab her fiancé's arm, but her fiancé was not at the table. Her fiancé was at the microphone, standing beside the billionaire, shaking his hand like they had known each other for years, because they had. Seraphina's legs gave out from under her, and she collapsed into her chair, because in that single moment, she understood everything. The janitor was not the one who had embarrassed himself tonight. Now, before I tell you what happened next, check that subscribe button at the bottom of your screen. If you love stories where the proud fall and justice hits like thunder, hit it right now and turn on notifications, because the payback in this story, it is going to be legendary. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. Everything she had was borrowed. She just didn't know it yet. Houston, Texas, a city of oil money and new money, and the particular kind of ambition that comes from watching other people get rich and deciding you will not be left behind. Seraphina Vale was beautiful in a calculated way. Every detail of her appearance considered and deliberate. Warm brown skin with honey undertones, sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that assessed everything in a room within seconds of entering it. She had grown up in a working-class neighborhood in 3rd Ward. Her mother worked as a school cafeteria supervisor. Her father managed a car wash. Good people, hard-working people. But Seraphina had decided very early that hard work was not enough. She wanted the kind of life that hard work alone could not buy. She wanted proximity to wealth, and she had found it. His name was Ronan Hale, tall and broad-shouldered, a registered architect with his own firm, Hale Design Group, whose buildings had appeared in Architectural Digest. He drove a Range Rover, wore tailored suits, had a penthouse apartment in Midtown Houston, with a view that made people stop talking when they first saw it. He was, by every visible measure, exactly what Seraphina had been looking for. They had met at a rooftop event. Seraphina had researched him before they were formally introduced. She knew his net worth estimate, knew his firm's major clients, knew he had recently sold a commercial property for a significant profit. She had dressed specifically for that evening. She had positioned herself specifically in his eyeline. And when they were introduced, she had been everything he was looking for: warm, intelligent, ambitious, interested in his work without being intimidated by it. Ronan had fallen quickly. Men like Ronan always did. They were used to women being impressed by them. They were not used to women who made them feel like they had to earn it. Seraphina had the gift of making a man feel like he was pursuing when she was actually leading. Months of careful, strategic relationship building. Months of meeting his family and friends. Months of becoming indispensable. Cooking for him when he was overworked. Remembering details about his clients. Being the kind of partner that a busy man stops being able to imagine functioning without. And then the proposal. A rooftop dinner. A ring that cost more than her parents' car. A question she had been engineering him toward for months. And she said yes before he finished asking. The wedding was set for soon. Everything was on track. Everything was perfect. Except for one thing Seraphina did not know. One thing that had been happening while she was busy building her perfect future. Something that would surface on the night of the Voss Foundation charity gala and end everything she had built in a single hour. He had been watching the whole time. He had seen everything. His name was Kael Voss. Medium height, a slight softness around the middle that came from years of boardroom lunches and not enough time to exercise. Deep brown skin, warm eyes behind simple wire-rimmed glasses, gray at his temples and through his close-cropped beard. The kind of face that looked like someone's uncle, approachable, unhurried, easy to overlook, which was precisely why he wore it into rooms like this one. Kael Voss was the founder and chairman of Voss Holdings, a diversified investment and real estate conglomerate headquartered in Houston with assets across states. Estimated net worth billions. He had built it over years, starting with a single rental property in Acres Homes, bought with money he had saved working double shifts as a hospital porter. He had mopped floors. He had emptied bedpans. He had been invisible to people who moved through hospitals the way people move through airports, focused only on their destination, blind to everything between. He remembered every one of those years, and he remembered them not with bitterness, but with the clear-eyed precision of a man who understood that those years had built everything that came after. Tonight was the annual Voss Foundation Charity Gala, an event his foundation had hosted for consecutive years, raising money for workforce development programs across Houston's 3rd Ward, 5th Ward, and Sunnyside communities. The communities he had come from. Every year, Kael attended the gala the same way. He arrived before the official program began, not in a suit, in work clothes. He helped set up the room, helped direct the catering team, pushed carts, arranged chairs, moved through the space as an invisible man while the guests arrived in their finery and their assumptions. He did it for 2 reasons, and the first was practical. He genuinely believed that any leader who was too important to do the work was too important to lead. The second was personal. He wanted to remember. He never wanted the man in the penthouse to forget the man with the mop. So every year he pushed a cart through a room full of people who did not see him. And every year it told him something true about the world. This year it had told him something specific, something about a woman in a gold dress who had leaned close to him near the service entrance with a smile that had nothing warm in it, and said loudly enough for people to hear, "Shouldn't you be moving faster? At this rate, the party will be over before you finish. But I suppose this is probably the most exciting place you've ever worked." The people beside her laughed. Kael had looked at her, said nothing, nodded once and went back to work. But he had seen her name tag, and he had seen the man she walked back to. And something shifted in Kael Voss's understanding of the evening. He had been lying to her for months. Tonight was the last night he could. Ronan Hale was not simply an architect. He was also Kael Voss's godson, the son of Kael's oldest friend, a man named Harlan Voss, who had come to America from Ghana the same year Kael had, who had worked beside Kael in that hospital before they both found different paths. Kael had watched Ronan grow from a child into a man, had funded his architecture degree when Harlan hit a financial rough patch, had given Hale Design Group its first major commission, the redesign of the Voss Foundation headquarters. Ronan was family, not by blood, but by the kind of bond that runs deeper than blood. And for the past months, Ronan had been confiding in Kael about his relationship with Seraphina. Not everything, but enough for Kael to hear something in Ronan's voice that the younger man could not hear himself. "She makes me feel like I am never quite enough," Ronan had said once, "like I am always one achievement away from being what she actually wants." "What does she want?" Kael had asked. Ronan had been quiet for a long moment. "I think she wants what my life looks like. I am not sure she wants me." Kael had not said what he was thinking, and he was not a man who forced realizations on people before they were ready. But he had been watching. And before the gala, his executive assistant, a meticulous woman named Leora, had brought him something, a printed email chain. Seraphina's personal email, a conversation with a woman named Elara, a friend from her college years. The email chain had been forwarded to Leora anonymously. Kael had read it once. Then he had called Ronan. "I need you to come to my office," he had said. "There is something you need to see." Ronan had read the emails in silence. Pages. Seraphina discussing the relationship with clinical precision. The architecture firm's revenue projections. Ronan's property holdings. Her estimate of what the prenuptial agreement would allow her to keep if they divorced. Her exact words in the final email sent before the gala were, "The ring is gorgeous, and the penthouse is everything. But honestly, Elara, I need to know what his godfather is worth before I fully commit. If the old man's money flows to Ronan eventually, this is the best decision I've ever made. If not, I need to rethink the timeline." Ronan had set the pages down very carefully. He had not spoken for a long time. "How long have you had this?" he asked. "A while," Kael said. "Why didn't you tell me immediately?" "Because I wanted you to be certain. I wanted you to have time to see it clearly." not in the first shock of it. Ronan looked at the pages again, then he looked at his godfather. "Now what do I do?" Kael had folded his hands on his desk. "That," he said gently, "is entirely your decision. But whatever you decide, I will stand beside you." Ronan had made his decision, and the Voss Foundation charity gala was where it would be carried out. She spent time performing the perfect fiancé. She had no idea the curtain was already falling. Seraphina Vale arrived at the gala feeling invincible. The gold dress had cost thousands. The jewelry was borrowed from a boutique on River Oaks Boulevard that Ronan had an account with. She looked extraordinary, and she knew it. Ronan was beside her, handsome, attentive, introducing her to people as his fiancée, with the kind of warmth that made her feel occasionally that maybe she did actually love him. Maybe she worked the room, spoke to the right people, made the right impressions. She stopped near the service entrance at one point, champagne in hand, mid-anecdote with women from Ronan's professional circle, and saw the janitor with the cart moving slowly. She had not thought before she spoke. She never did in moments like that. The words came out, and the women beside her laughed, and Seraphina felt the small electric pleasure of a room acknowledging her wit. She did not look at the janitor's face. She never looked at their faces. She rejoined Ronan at their table. The evening continued. Dinner was served. The foundation's executive director gave a presentation on the year's impact. Thousands of Houston residents placed in workforce training programs. Hundreds of families stabilized. Seraphina listened with half her attention, and the other half was calculating. She had still not been able to determine the full extent of Kael Voss's wealth. She knew the name. Everyone in Houston's business community knew the name. But the man himself was famously private. No social media, minimal press. His face was not one she would recognize. She had asked Ronan about him once. "Tell me about your godfather. What is he like?" Ronan had smiled in a way she had not been able to read. "You will meet him eventually," he had said. "He is not easy to describe." Seraphina had pressed. Ronan had changed the subject. She was still thinking about this when the master of ceremonies stepped to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue our program this evening, we have a very special addition to our agenda. The man who founded this gala, who has personally funded every dollar of tonight's event, whose name graces the building you are sitting in. A man who, true to his nature, arrived tonight not through the front door, but through the service entrance." A murmur through the crowd. "Please welcome the founder of Voss Holdings and the chairman of the Voss Foundation, Mr. Kael Voss." The room erupted, people on their feet, and the janitor's cart rolled quietly to the side of the room, and the man who had been pushing it straightened up, removed his work vest, handed it to a waiting assistant, and walked to the microphone in a simple dark suit that had been waiting for him backstage. He smiled at the room, warm, genuine, unhurried. "Thank you," he said. "Please sit down. I am just a man who used to mop floors." Laughter, warmth, people sitting back down. Seraphina was frozen. She was staring at the face, the wire-rimmed glasses, the gray in the beard, the warm eyes, the face of the man she had leaned close to near the service entrance. "The most exciting place you've ever worked." The people beside her had laughed. She had laughed. The room was spinning. She reached for Ronan's arm. His chair was empty. She turned. Ronan was at the front of the room, standing beside Kael at the microphone, shaking his hand, smiling as if he had known this was coming, because he had. Seraphina's legs stopped working. She collapsed into her chair. Her champagne glass hit the table and tipped. The woman beside her grabbed it before it spilled. But nobody grabbed Seraphina. Nobody caught her. She sat in her chair like something that had been unplugged, her face frozen between expressions, because she understood now, all of it. The smile Ronan had given her when she asked about his godfather. You will meet him eventually. He is not easy to describe. He had known. He had known tonight. He had known for longer than tonight. The question was, how long? And the answer to that question was going to change everything. She thought she still had a way out. She did not have a way out. Kael's remarks lasted a while. Seraphina sat through all of them without moving, without drinking, without speaking to the women beside her, who were exchanging glances she could feel but could not look at. When the applause ended and the program moved to its next segment, Ronan walked back to the table. He sat down, and he looked at Seraphina. His expression was something she had never seen on his face before. Not anger, not hurt. Something quieter and more final than either. Ronan, she said. Not here, he said quietly. Ronan, I can explain. Seraphina. His voice was low and completely controlled. Not here. Please. She closed her mouth. They sat through the remainder of the program, in a silence that felt like a room with all the oxygen removed. When the formal program ended, and the room loosened into post-event mingling, Ronan stood. Come with me, he said. He led her to a private meeting room off the main corridor. He closed the door. He turned to face her, and he placed printed pages on the small table between them. Seraphina looked at them. She recognized her own words before she could read them. She knew what they were. How, she said. It does not matter how, Ronan said. Ronan, those emails, they are out of context. Ilara and I were just, Seraphina. He said her name the way you say a word. You are putting down and will not pick back up. I have read them many times. There is no context that changes what they say. She tried a different approach, softer. Baby. I love you. Whatever I said to Ilara, I was just venting. Everyone vents. It doesn't mean the ring is on the table in the penthouse. Ronan said. Your things have been moved to the guest room. I would like you to be out by the end of the week. Seraphina stared at him. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious. Ronan, we have a wedding soon. We have deposits. We have... Everything will be handled fairly, he said. My attorney will be in touch. He walked to the door, opened it, paused. The firm that is handling the Voss Holdings expansion contract, he said without turning around. I recommended you for the events coordination role. I have withdrawn that recommendation. He walked out. Seraphina stood in the empty meeting room, alone with pages of her own words and the sound of people laughing and celebrating on the other side of the wall. He owed her nothing. He said it anyway, because that is the kind of man he was. Kael found her there. Later, he knocked on the open door. She had not closed it after Ronan left, and stepped inside. Seraphina looked up. The man who had been pushing a cart was now the most powerful person in the building, and he was looking at her without cruelty, without satisfaction, without any of the things she deserved. "May I sit?" he asked. She nodded. He sat across from her, said nothing for a moment. "I want you to know," he said finally, "that what happened tonight was Ronan's decision entirely. I gave him information he deserved to have. What he did with it was his choice." Seraphina said nothing. "I also want to say something to you that has nothing to do with my godson." She looked at him, "The man you spoke to near the service entrance tonight." Kael said, "I was that man. I do that every year at this gala. I have done it for years." Seraphina closed her eyes. "I don't say this to make you feel worse than you already do," he continued. "I say it because I want you to understand something, and the way you spoke to me tonight. It was not about me. I am a man with years of confidence behind me. What you said rolled off me like water." He paused. "But the man who came before me at that cart, a young man, first month on the job, he heard what you said because you said it loudly. And he has been in the back of the house, not because of his work, because of how your words landed on him." Seraphina opened her eyes. Something moved in her face I did not know. "You did not look," Kael said simply. "There is a difference." He stood. "I hope tonight is instructive," he said, "not painful for its own sake, but genuinely instructive about what we see when we look at people and what we miss when we don't." He walked to the door. "There is a young man in the back of the house named Cairo," he said without turning. "If you have something to say to him before you leave tonight, I think it would mean something." He left. Seraphina sat in that room for a long time. He almost didn't go. The fact that she did was the only thing that mattered. She found him in the service corridor. Slight build, dark skin, still in his work uniform, sitting on an overturned crate, eating a sandwich, and staring at his phone with the deliberate focus of someone using a screen to avoid thinking. He looked up when she appeared in the doorway. His expression went immediately neutral. The way young people in service jobs learn to make their faces go neutral when someone from the other side of the door appears. Seraphina stood in the doorway in her gold dress and her borrowed jewelry, and for the first time in a very long time, she had absolutely no idea what to say. Not because she was calculating, because she was not calculating at all. She was just a woman in a doorway looking at a kid who was eating a sandwich alone in a service corridor because of something she had said. "I owe you an apology," she said. Cairo looked at her, said nothing. "What I said earlier was wrong. It was unkind, and it was said loudly enough that other people heard it. And that is worse." She stopped. "I am sorry. Not because of anything that happened to me tonight. Because it was wrong." Cairo was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Okay, just okay. No forgiveness performance. No making her feel better. Just okay." And which was honest. And honest was more than she deserved. She nodded. turned to go. "How do you know Mr. Voss?" Cairo said behind her. She turned back. "I don't," she said. "I thought he was the janitor." Cairo looked at her for a moment. Then he smiled. Not warmly, but real, yeah, he said. "He does that every year." Seraphina walked back through the service corridor, back through the side door into the parking garage. She sat in her car for a while. Then she drove to her mother's house in 3rd Ward. She had not been there in a while. Losing everything showed her the only thing that had ever been real. Seraphina's mother opened the door in her housecoat and slippers. She took one look at her daughter's face and stepped aside without asking a single question. That was the thing about her mother. She never asked questions at the door. She just stepped aside. Seraphina sat at the kitchen table where she had done homework as a child, while her mother made tea. The kitchen smelled the same as it always had. Dish soap and something always simmering on the back burner. Clean and warm and completely without performance. "The engagement is over," Seraphina said. Her mother set a cup in front of her, sat down across from her. "Tell me," she said. And Seraphina told her all of it. Not a performance, not a managed version. Everything. The research before she met Ronan, the strategy, the emails to Alara, the janitor who was not a janitor, the pages on the table in the meeting room, the boy named Cairo eating a sandwich in the service corridor. Her mother listened to all of it without speaking. When Seraphina finished, the kitchen was quiet. "Mama," Seraphina said, "say something." Her mother looked at her daughter for a long moment. "You have your father's stubbornness," she said, "and my ambition, and somehow you pointed both of them in the wrong direction for a very long time." Seraphina looked at the table. "I know the question," her mother said, "is not what you lost tonight. The question is what you do with what is left." "I don't know what is left." "Yes, you do." Her mother reached across the table and tapped Seraphina's hand twice. "You have always known. You just stopped looking at it." Seraphina looked up. Her mother's face was the same face it had always been. Tired in the way of women who have worked hard all their life, and completely, unshakably solid. Seraphina thought about Cairo eating his sandwich alone in a service corridor, about her father managing a car wash and coming home every evening and sitting at this same kitchen table and never once making anyone feel small for what they did or did not have. About the way Kael Voss had knocked on an open door and asked if he could sit. About the way Ronan had said her name like a word he was putting down. Later, Seraphina Vale left Houston. She took a position with a nonprofit workforce development organization in Atlanta. A mid-level coordinator role that paid a third of what she had been expecting to earn as Ronan Hale's wife. She was good at it. Better than she expected. She was particularly good at sitting across a table from someone who had been made to feel invisible by the world and making them feel seen because she knew what it looked like from both sides now. The one who dismisses and the one who is dismissed. She never forgot Cairo. She never forgot the sandwich. She never forgot the service corridor. And on the days when the work was hard and the money was tight, and the life she had engineered so carefully felt very far away, she thought about her mother's kitchen, the dish soap, the back burner, the 2 taps on the back of her hand, and she kept going. There is a particular kind of fall, not the dramatic kind, not the kind that happens in front of cameras and crowds, the kind that happens in a private room with pages of your own words on the table in front of you, and no one to blame but yourself. Seraphina Vale had that fall, and she did not get up immediately. She sat in it. She drove to her mother's house. She told the truth. And then slowly, without applause, without an audience, she began to become someone she could look at without flinching. That is not a small thing. That is not easy. Most people never do it. Most people find a story to tell themselves about why none of it was their fault. Seraphina Vale did not tell herself that story. She told herself the truth instead, and the truth, as it always does, set her free. Not immediately, not painlessly, but completely. The billionaire who pushed a cart, the young man eating a sandwich alone, the woman who lost everything she had been chasing, and finally found what she had been missing. One gala, one night, and fate never forgets. If this story moved your heart, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because every tale has a lesson, and modern African folk tales never forgets. In the captivating narrative of Seraphina Vale and Kael Voss, we uncover a heart-wrenching life lesson, the devastating cost of arrogance and the redemptive grace found in humility when we least expect it. Seraphina, draped in gold and entitlement, sneered at a janitor's slow pace during a lavish gala, dismissing him as insignificant in a room glittering with wealth, unaware that this unassuming man was Kael Voss, the billionaire philanthropist whose name adorned the very building, and whose quiet wisdom had shaped empires from mop in hand. Her cruel words, meant to elevate her status, instead unraveled her carefully curated world, exposing the fragility of relationships built on facades. As her fiancé, Kael's godson, revealed her calculated motives, Seraphina's fall evoked a profound ache, mirroring the silent wounds inflicted on the overlooked souls like young Cairo, whose spirit dimmed in the shadows of her disdain. Yet, this story stirs the soul with hope. In her collapse, Seraphina glimpsed the mirror of her actions, choosing apology over denial, and embarking on a path of genuine service in a nonprofit far from her dreams of luxury. It reminds us that true power resides not in titles or treasures, but in the kindness we extend to those we deem beneath us. For fate often disguises mentors and mirrors in humble guises. In a society obsessed with status, this tale pierces the heart, urging us to pause amid our pursuits and recognize the humanity in every encounter, lest our words become the chains that bind us. Empathy, it whispers, is the ultimate liberator, transforming humiliation into healing and isolation into connection. If this emotional revelation has stirred memories of your own encounters with unexpected justice or moments of personal reckoning, share them vulnerably in the comments below. Your voices weave the community that heals us all. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more soul-deep stories that challenge our perspectives and ignite change. Join the journey today.